Yeah.
Operated. You know what I mean?
You're going to be paying one as one way or another.
1 out of 100. XM is some kind of fundamental happiness.
Right, we're back on the Winner's Circle on the It's More Than Just Money Movement channel, where we delve into conversations with industry leaders, entrepreneurs, and change makers who are making a difference in the South African business landscape and abroad. And today, I'm doing actually a part two with Stan Katz, who is the co-founder of Prime Media Broadcasting, as well as Radio 702, who revolutionized South African talk radio and basically played a pivotal role in introducing talk radio into the country. Now, he's done a lot of amazing work in the media and radio space. And one of the key things that I like about the conversation that I'm going to be having with him today is that it is going to be a part two of a conversation that we had previously. If you haven't seen the conversation that I had with him in the past, please search Stan Katz on the channel and you will find the previous episode that we did with him, where he delves into how he built certain businesses that are doing remarkable work in the country. And not only that, you will see his demonstration of leadership and understanding of how to build teams, as well as sales and many other business-related work that is going to be impactful to you. So don't only watch this episode, also go back to the episode that we did a couple of months ago, which is part one to this conversation that's going to be a part two. Stan, good to have you back on the Winner's Circle on It's More Than Just Money. And like I always say, I appreciate every time you make time to mentor, to impart, and to give direction. And I'm also appreciative of the fact that I'm not the only one who's going to be getting that direction, impartation, as well as mentorship. But by having this conversation, a lot of people through these screens also benefit from the conversation that you and I are going to be having. So welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
And it makes me want to ask what made you take the invitation to do part two.
Because part one went so well, and we got a decent amount of viewers.
Yes.
When I said come for part two, I couldn't think what did we leave out that we would put into part two, but I knew, witness, you would come up with something that would make it worthwhile to do part two.
Absolutely. And in part one, we explored your incredible journey in business, starting from when you were just an office boy in Radio Swazi. Was it Radio Swazi?
It was radio,
Swazi.
yeah.
And how you even went on to build some of South Africa's biggest radio stations and also one of South Africa's biggest media companies. And reflecting on that, what key lessons do you believe every aspiring entrepreneur or leader should learn early on?
I was lucky to know at a very young age, at the age of 23, I knew what I wanted to do. And then how that happened, just to maybe rewind a bit, is I was listening to Swazi radio one night while driving my car. And I thought to myself, that's what I would like to do with my life. I'd been in business with my brother. The company didn't do well. We folded it after a year. And I was looking for something to do with my life. And when I heard this, I thought, that's what I want to do. I was 23 and I thought, I've got the rest of my life ahead of me. I'm going to take a chance. And I managed to get an interview. Long story short, I was hired as the office boy, and I worked my way up to where I became the program manager of Swazi Radio. Then I wanted the station manager's job, He wasn't ready to relinquish his job, so he fired me. But, you know, if you know what you want, you're halfway there. But you have to have faith that you can make it happen. And my favorite definition of faith comes from the immortal words of Martin Luther King Jr. He said, and this is to do with faith, you don't have to see the whole of the staircase, just the first step. Mm-hmm. And that was what happened in my life. I saw the first step and the rest unfolded. But know what you want. The other thing I believe is knowing what you want is halfway to achieving it. You can have anything you want if you're prepared to pay the price. And the price may be sacrificing time where you could be relaxing and doing other things. It's making the sacrifice. It's paying the price to get what you want. I really believe that anyone can have that if they're prepared to go the extra mile.
And then how has your leadership style then evolved from
Good
those
question.
days where you knew exactly what you wanted, you built your way up all the way
Okay.
to building companies?
I knew nothing. I knew a lot about radio. I knew a lot about marketing and sales and media.
Yeah.
But I didn't know anything about leading a team of people. Now, to the point where my admonition to the people I was leading is I would say, it's not effort, it's results that count. I cringe when I think back on that. When you say to somebody, it's not effort, it's results that count. Effort does count. We fail forward to success. And so when as I say, I cringe when I think of that. Effort does count, because as long as you are moving towards a predetermined, worthwhile goal, effort does count.
What do you mean by effort?
Effort means success is not a doorway. Success is a staircase. We fail forward to success. And the failing forward is the effort that we put into something. And we fail and fail and fail until we achieve success. But it does involve making mistakes. Mm-hmm. And unless you're prepared to make mistakes, you shouldn't attempt anything.
So you mentor some companies
Yes.
across Africa.
Yes.
Why was that important? I mean, after having stepped out of the everyday work of doing business, you still saw it fit that you still want to mentor some companies, you still want to add value. Why is that important to you?
Well, how that happened actually was I was approached by Deutsche Welle, which is
Deutsche Welle.
it's
Okay.
the German international broadcasting organization, media organization. Mm-hmm. They'd obviously heard about what I had been doing in South Africa, and they approached me to go to, in the first case, to go to Liberia to help a radio station in Liberia. My first thought, now Liberia was it was the Wild West. My first thought was, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go to this wild and crazy place. And then
Did they have war at the time?
No, the war was over by that time.
Yeah.
But they'd had a terrible war. And then I thought, well, you know what? It's going to be an adventure. So that was my approach. It would be an adventure. Now,
And how old are you at the time?
I must have been this was 2012, which was how many years ago?
That's 12 years ago.
12 years ago.
Yeah, going into 13.
So I was
Must have been 60, 61?
60, early 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
I
you were
thought
going on an adventure
I was going on an adventure.
when you should be retiring.
Witness, I can never retire.
I know you wouldn't retire.
What am I going to do? I don't play golf. What would my friends all dying off? So I've got to be. I enjoy what I do.
Right.
It gives me a reason for getting up in the day. Now my approach was when I met this radio station. It was called Star Radio
In Liberia.
in Liberia.
Yeah.
In Monrovia, in fact, which is the capital of Liberia. I realized that they knew very little about radio. Now, how Deutsche Welle works is instead of giving their partner stations money, they give them skills transfer. So they sent me to do a skills transfer operation. So how I operate is I say, where are we now? Where do we want to be? How do we plan to get there? And when do we plan to arrive? And then I do a SWOT analysis. A SWOT analysis, as you know, is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We then unpack everything that the company is dealing with until we've got a very clear picture. Everybody involved has a very clear picture of where the station is, where it wants to be, how it plans to get there, when it plans to arrive. We then start setting goals. And they were so impressed that they asked me to go back again, which I did. And by this stage, they'd already made progress. They had moved from not knowing what they were doing to having a very clear objective in their minds. So Deutsche Welle then said, we want you to go to Sierra Leone. Now, Sierra Leone was wilder than
Liberia.
Liberia, I didn't ever feel threatened. I didn't ever feel that I was in danger. But Sierra Leone the war had ended about 10 years previously. I don't know if you know much about Sierra Leone. They had child soldiers who were chopping off people's limbs. And it was a very, very, what is the word I'm looking for? Troubled place. People had not recovered from the war. And so Liberia was more difficult. They wanted to know why they were bringing in someone from outside to tell them what to do. I would have meetings set up and people would not arrive. And so it was a very difficult, they were traumatized. That's the word I'm trying to use. They were suspicious of anyone coming from the outside to tell them what to do. But I have my way of working and I applied that.
I was about to ask, how did you handle the difficult situation, especially the delicate part of you set up a meeting, the people that are traumatized by a war and basically not trusting of anybody that's from the outside are not even pitching for those meetings. The navigation around that?
I just had to put them at ease that I wasn't there to tell them what to do. I wasn't there to change anything that was working for them. I was there to learn in the first place and to see if I could add value from what I learned about what they were already doing. I went back twice to Sierra Leone, but I must say I didn't enjoy it. After that, I went to, where did they send me? To Kenya. They sent me to Ghana. They sent me to Zambia. I went to Zambia several times.
But apart from the fact that they are sending you to all these places, right? What in you actually wanted to do that? Because I don't think anybody who's in their 60s, I mean, who's built an incredible career for themselves, would want to do something like that unless they really want to do it. Plus, you're even going to areas that were high risk.
High risk. It
Why was that so important?
I'll tell
to
you what it was. It was an adventure. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I knew if I applied what I had learned in building other radio stations in very sophisticated, by comparison, I mean, the South African market was very sophisticated. But I thought if I can teach them one or two things, I will have achieved something. And I made friends. To this day, I'm still contacted by people from Liberia, people from Sierra Leone with questions. This is the situation. What do you suggest we do? So I will almost say, a reluctant mentor. I went there to mentor them without knowing what I was up against. I did know it was going to be difficult. What I didn't enjoy was the travel, and I didn't enjoy the accommodation. But I enjoyed the work. I enjoyed the adulation. They were so keen to learn. When it would come time for a break, I'd say, all right, let's take a break. I said, no, let's continue. Let's keep going. That made me feel really good that I was adding value to the point where they didn't want to stop. They just wanted to learn more. They were like sponges. They wanted to learn more and more and more. And you know, witness, what they say is, when you teach somebody something, you learn it twice. And that's how I felt, that I was learning what I'd already taught other people. I was learning it again, and I enjoyed it. I could improve. My means of teaching, of explaining, of mentoring had improved. I was adding value, and that's always a good feeling. When you feel you're adding something and they're learning something, and as a result, they are achieving something.
So, quite interesting, but it also makes me wonder when I'm listening to what you're saying. It sounds like a lot of the challenges you took up were challenges that seemed bigger than you. That's why it became a challenge.
Yes.
So what is it that made you want to take up a challenge that's bigger than you?
Because what I'd been doing...
You had nothing to prove.
I did have something to prove.
What did you have to prove?
I had to prove to myself that what I knew and what I had done before was valid and could be done, could be replicated in markets where there was
no sophistication.
No sophistication at all.
Okay. So you felt what you did in SA,
yes,
it was done, but it was done in a market that's sophisticated.
And then I thought, I wonder if I can make this work in a market where they have no clue. There was nobody had been there before me to teach them anything.
Right.
So it was a challenge. And if you know me, you'll know that I rise to a challenge. Adversity for me is a spur. I went to Kenya. I worked in the Rift Valley. I went to Ghana. All of these places had never been exposed to what I was trying to teach them, what I was teaching them.
And what are some of the things that you were teaching at the time?
What is the nature of your business? I would teach it. First of all, as I said, Deutsche Welle, and then I worked for BBC as well. I did a similar thing for BBC in Zambia. the first thing I had to get across to them was that they need to generate revenue. They need to make money if they hope to succeed in what they're doing. So my first question is always, what business are you in? And I'm always amazed at the questions, the answers that I get. We're in the radio business. We're in broadcasting. We're in the news business. We're in the music business. Then I'd say, where does the money come from? And then through a process of deduction, we would arrive at the answer that we're in the business of delivering prospects to people, prospects to advertisers. And those prospects are people who have never been on the radio before. What can we do to get people to advertise on your radio station so that it benefits them and by extension benefits the radio station?
So it's more like identifying the value for them
Yes.
and building the value proposition for them
Yes.
to use. And then when you...
You know, some of the basic stuff I would teach them was, when have you ever invited advertisers to come visit the radio station where you serve them some drinks and some eats
Yeah.
and you build friendships? Now, this is what else I learned. All things being equal, people like to do business with friends. In fact, all things not being equal, people still like to do business with friends. And my approach to sales has become not always be closing, in other words, closing the sale, but ABC, always be curious. Always learn about your advertisers or your client's business so that you can find something that's going to add value to them. And that's how you build a relationship. And the relationship is always, how can we help you? First of all, I need to understand your business. Now that I understand your business, how do we take our story, our message to advertisers so that they can make money? I'll tell you why mentorship is important, why it's important to me. Because when I was starting out, I had mentors. I had people who helped me, people who showed me the way, people who had experience and had achieved success, and they were prepared to help me. I'll tell you a story. A couple of months ago, I won some awards
You're still winning awards.
I'm still winning awards. One was for an interview I did called In the Boardroom with Stan Katz.
Yes.
And another one was as a facilitator for AutoJet. That's this organization.
Yes.
Anyway, so it was I wasn't expecting to win an award. I was invited to this function and I went. And next thing I'm being called up to win an award. A little while later, as I'm leaving, this young girl comes up to me, Mbali. She says, Mr. Stan, I'm in community radio. I want to get onto a commercial station. Will you mentor me? And my first response was, do I really want to do this? And I said, Mbali, I'm quite busy. I don't know when I'm going to find the time. Then I stopped myself and I said, when I was starting out, I had a few people. I had even people who showed me how to work the controls on the desk in the studio. Yeah. People showed me how to work the microphone. People showed me what sales in radio, what radio sales was all about. And before I could say, listen, I'm busy and I don't have time, I said, okay, I'll mentor you, but you do as I tell you. And she's so keen. She's based in the Vaal. We do a WhatsApp call once a week. I give her homework. She comes back to me with questions. And one day, I wouldn't be surprised if she doesn't land up running a radio station. And she will remember how I mentored her, how she learned from someone who'd been before. So, as I said when we started, a mentor is someone who has the expertise and the experience and shares that with someone who is starting out. And she is so keen. I give her homework to do. We speak on the phone. She could actually mentor me on digital and social, but it's very important.
Yep.
I remember when I was, at Swazi Radio, and a guy who had been there he'd been a big radio personality for many years on a number of different stations in South Africa. And here he was on Swazi Radio. And I was in the studio with him, and I said something to him. I was young, I was 23. And he turned to me and he said, "Listen, sonny boy, I don't have that gleam in my eye anymore.
What does that mean?
I'm not chasing fame and fortune. I've done it and I don't have that gleam. I'm not looking for more." I said, "Barry, so much that's the problem. You've lost that desire to grow, to keep growing."
Lost the spark,
It
basically.
lost the spark. Perfectly put.
So then tell me, when you look at, you've mentioned that there's a lot of people that have mentored you directly and indirectly in your journey.
Yes.
And I know that you've worked with some of the country's remarkable, not only the countries, but internationally
Yes.
acclaimed business people.
You know, I made it my business to track down the people who I admired.
Yeah.
I would, even if I had to pay for myself to go overseas, I would track them down and approach them and learn from them.
Did you know Nate Cash was Nate Cash before you worked for him?
Yes, I did actually.
Did you track him down or?
No, I approached them to get a job on Swazi Radio. Nate Kirsch was running Kirsch Industries. He wasn't running the station. Izzy Kirsch was running the station.
Yeah.
So, I knew who the Kirsches were. They were a very famous, very prominent family in South Africa.
Of course. Yes.
Yeah. And we talk about mentorship, and I think I might have mentioned this. I don't even remember what we covered in our
Mention it again.
first interview. I was working at Swazi Radio as the office boy for 250 Rand a month, which even in those days was very little money. And I was approached.
It sounds like little money even today.
It's very little money today. It was little money then. And you know what? Every end of the month when I got paid, I would think to myself, and they pay me. I would do this stuff for nothing.
I see.
I was enjoying it so much. I honestly would have worked for free. So I was approached by a family friends of my mother, who had a factory, a tie factory of all things, and they were looking for someone to take over from the CEO who was getting on in years. They offered me double what I was earning.
They offered you 500 a
They
month.
offered me 500 a month, which is, but you got to put it in perspective. It was double.
Yes.
And that I would get shares in the business and I would eventually take over from the owner.
And you become the Thai guy.
I would become the Thai guy. And I went to my uncle, who was my mentor. Whenever I had something to discuss, when I needed guidance, I went to my uncle, not my father. My father had this thing about, he would tell me a dozen reasons why something I was attempting to do wouldn't work. So I stopped approaching him. I stopped going to him for advice.
Why is that important? We'll come back to your uncle. Why is that important that if you approach someone multiple times who's an influential figure in your life and they keep on telling you a dozen reasons why something will not work?
Well, all I did is I stopped approaching him.
Yes. Why is it important to do that?
To what?
To stop approaching somebody who does that.
because he was not mentoring me. He was giving me reasons why something wouldn't work. I wanted someone who would not necessarily give me reasons why it wouldn't work, but who would guide me. He would say, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? What about this? What about that? Anyway, I went to see my uncle. I told him the story that I'd been approached, and he said to me, asked me one question. He said, do you enjoy what you're doing? I said, I love what I'm doing. He said, then continue doing it. He said, if it's a labor of love, the money will come. If you pursue the money will elude you because it's not a labor of love. If you love what you're doing and it's a labor of love, you'll go the extra mile. And by going the extra mile, the money will come. And I went back to Swazi Radio, and I didn't hold a gun to their head. I said, listen, I was approached. I've turned the job down. I'm just mentioning it to you. They immediately doubled my money, and
To 500.
to 500.
Yeah.
Even 500 wasn't a lot of money, but it was double what I was getting.
Sure.
And I stuck to it because I had a mentor who put it in perspective for me. And that's the role of a mentor, to give you perspective, you know?
So after this episode, if you're watching here, we're going to be having something called the Next Gen Mentorship here on the It's More Than Just Money Movement channel. And Stan Katz will be spearheading the setting up of the Next Gen Mentorship because he's far more experienced. He's done the business work across the world, across Africa. And I want to come back to you, Stan, and also pose this question, right? What do you think mentees, we talking about anyone, young and old, will be watching this platform called Next Gen Mentorship? What do you envision them gaining out of that?
Well, what I envisage them doing, and I always use this expression, if you have one or two questions, I have one or two answers. And the way I envisage it working, I mean, we haven't actually discussed in great detail how it's going to work, but if people would approach me, and I think we're going to do it weekly, approach me with a question, I could then give them the mentor's answer in the following week, or however we decide we're going to get the questions that I can give answers to.
Do you think South African youth need mentors?
Yes.
And if so,
I think they
what do you think the gap is?
I think they want mentors. I was absolutely amazed and honored when I saw how many people responded to our last interview, part one of this interview.
Yes.
Young people, well, I don't know how old they were, young and old,
Yeah.
but
Young at heart.
young at heart. You got to be young at heart, man. You got to be young at heart. What they got out of that interview, and I thought, wow, I was amazed. I was honored that they thought I could teach them something. And when people approach you and you feel you can teach them something, you have to do it. You can't not do it. And so I'm actually looking forward to doing Next Gen Mentorship.
So mentorship versus management, right? When you look at...
Well, you can be a manager and a mentor, and in fact, a manager should be a mentor.
Yeah. So how do you then... how does mentoring young leaders differ from managing them? So say, for instance, I'm a manager in a company, right? How is managing them versus mentoring them actually differ?
It doesn't differ, really. Look, a leader is a facilitator. It's not an order giver. And if you're a manager or a leader, well, if you are a manager, you should be a leader anyway. And I'll give you another example. In fact, I was having a coffee with someone who used to work for me many years ago. He was head of our promotions department at 947, which was one of the
Is that
stations.
Jacaranda?
Jacaranda. No. Highveld.
Highfield Studio, okay.
947. It was called Highveld Stereo in those days. And he reminded me of that I was his boss, and we ran an ad, and it had a spelling mistake. And he didn't know what to do with himself. He was so beside himself. He was so distraught. He came to me and he said, "Look what I've done. What am I going to do?" I said, "Did anybody die?" He said, "No, nobody died." I said, "Well, don't do it again." And people know when they've done something wrong. You don't have to tear them apart. They know when they've done something wrong. It's giving them the courage to try again. And he remembered this witness, 30 years ago this happened. And he still remembered that incident where I didn't tear him apart. I said, did anybody die? He said, no. I said, then it's not a train smash.
So building onto that,
Yes.
from your mentorship experience,
Yes.
what are some of the common mistakes that you see young entrepreneurs make, and how can mentorship help them?
I tell you
avoid
what,
these
I tell you what they do is I used to, when I started out before I became a leader or a better leader, was I ranted and raved and used profanity. I yelled at people. I eventually learned that when you apply anger, all you do is you put the emphasis on the anger, not on solving the problem. So my first approach was I would yell and shout and scream. And all I did was put the focus on the anger. You achieve nothing. And that was when I started learning to mentor, to ask questions. Can I give you another? I'm going to give you some advice, which you probably will ignore. That's all right. One day you'll get this aha moment. Listen from the middle of the table. When you're in a meeting with a whole bunch of people, listen from the middle of the table. In other words, you're not sitting back and holding a position. You are taking everything into account. The other thing a manager does, a manager/mentor does, is he speaks last. You listen to everybody, what they have to say, then you speak. Then you say, I've listened to what you've said. Here's what we're going to do. So, yeah, I saw on a coffee mug at a client's office the other day, it said, management is easy. It's like riding a bicycle, except the bicycle's on fire, you're on fire, everything's on fire, and you're in hell. But otherwise, it's easy.
So you've always, and even in our last interview, emphasized the role of company culture in driving success.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
When you reflect on that,
Yes.
and also look at how you plan to instill it in the next generation through the next gen mentorship, how do you see that becoming a big factor?
I'm going in with an open mind, but culture is the tip of the iceberg. If you take an iceberg, the tip of the iceberg is what you see on the outside. The underside of the iceberg is the culture. And the culture really means the way we do things around here. And people pass that on. So when somebody new comes into the company, they learn very quickly, this is how we do things around here. That is the culture. Now, you've got culture and you've got strategy. Culture always triumphs over strategy.
Culture triumphs strategy.
Yeah, culture triumphs strategy.
So meaning culture overrides strategy.
Culture overrides strategy.
Why is that? Can you tell me why?
Because everybody knows or should know what it is, how we do things around here. That's what culture, the simplest way of explaining culture is how we do things around here.
So if someone is new and they come into the work environment,
Yes.
and it's a relaxed culture,
Yes.
it's not high performance culture.
You've got different cultures, but okay, let's take your example.
Yes, maybe it's a relaxed culture.
Yeah.
It's not high performance.
Yes.
Even if they come from a high performance environment with a strategy, working on it, putting in the work, they're gonna get there and relax because that's the culture.
Yes. You get drawn into what the culture is. You can't go in there and implant the culture from your previous organization.
So how does then one, if culture overrides or triumphs over strategy, how does one then build a culture that's consistent with strategy?
Well, the strategy will emerge from the culture.
Okay.
So if
Can
it's,
culture
let's
not
use
emerge
your
from
example.
strategy?
I beg your pardon?
Can culture not emerge from strategy?
It can, but it's better if it works the other way around. Because, as I say, culture is how we do things around here. Now, let me give you another example of culture. Is you can solve a lot of problems by having a round table conference where you encourage your associates to speak freely. That is a culture, for example. So from that will emerge a strategy where, the strategy will emerge from the culture. Mm-hmm. If you take a high-performance culture, if you want a high-performance culture, I'm not saying what culture you should have. I'm not saying what is the best culture. In some, I think in a lot of the high-tech firms, it's a killer culture. If you want a high-performance culture, reward performance. And that translates into your strategy. Our strategy is we will reward performance.
When you look at the South African landscape, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship, business, leadership, what are sort of the skills that you wish South Africans had, especially young South Africans, that you hope to actually instill through the next gen mentorship to them?
That's an interesting question. Let me think about it. What do I wish?
You look at the South African landscape,
Yes.
business, entrepreneurship,
Yes.
leadership. What are some of the skills you wish young South Africans had?
I wish they would learn leadership. It's easy to be a manager. It's not easy to be a leader. Let's have a look. What is a leader? A leader is someone who pursues a cause with such passion and such energy that they bring other people with them. That's what leadership is. Leaders look for ways of overcoming obstacles, looking for opportunities. And I hope I get this right. No, I'll come back to that. I'll come back to it. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
You did answer my question, but I want to take it further.
You see, the leader brings people with them. The leader is not an order giver. The leader is a facilitator. He facilitates. He understands what the strategy is based on the culture.
In your experience, what are the qualities that make someone coachable? And how should aspiring mentees prepare themselves to maximize on the opportunity of mentorship?
I think the first thing is respect. To have respect for your boss, and that respect is earned. It's earned. And when you have respect for your leader, you will make things happen without being told.
Okay. So let's talk about your legacy.
Yeah.
And I'm sure without you needing to do anything more, you've got an incredible legacy, especially
Thank you.
in business as a whole, in the media space, in the radio broadcasting space, advertising space. You've got skills that span across industries. Why at your age, when you've done so much, do you still feel like you want to contribute to society over and over again? Why is that important?
I don't know, but it is. I am driven. When people say, "How define yourself in 2 words?" or I'll say, I can define myself in 1 word: driven.
Driven.
And now,
Yeah.
what I'm learning new. I always describe myself as an analog guy in a digital world. I'm learning the digital world now. I want to understand that and make a contribution in that world. And I'm terrified because it's all new to me. Now LinkedIn and Facebook and TikTok and all of that, that's where I'm trying to gain knowledge and experience and expertise. And I have mentors who are helping me do that. I have a team of people who are helping me do that. I now have a mentor, a podcast called Herding Cats. Now, Herding Cats is life's lessons I learned from a lifetime in radio. But you don't have to be in radio to benefit, to derive maximum benefit from the lessons I learned in other businesses, in other businesses.
It sounds to me that obviously with every area, you get a mentor, right?
Yes.
And
And not necessarily one mentor. It's possible to get more than one mentor.
more than one.
Yeah.
But you also have a philosophy of giving before taking.
Yes.
Because you say you also want to understand the digital world. But here you are sitting, giving your time, giving your skills, answering questions, imparting knowledge. Why is it important to give before you actually get?
Is there any other way?
Well, there is.
If you want to, if you give, you're going to get. It's an immutable law of the universe. As you give, so you shall receive.
Yes.
Do you agree?
Yes.
If you give, you'll get. But if you see how much I can get immediately now without giving anything, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I've now done 11 episodes of Herding Cats,
Yes.
which incidentally is available on Spotify.
And you've done 11 of those episodes, right?
Yeah, they're all locked and loaded.
Locked and loaded. And now we are doing this video related kind of mentorship.
Yes.
And which also speaks to a continuation of a legacy, because now you are saying not only have you done this work, you wanted to impact other people in the next generation.
Yes.
I mean, 30, 40 years from today, you might not be around. Hopefully you'll be around.
I doubt it. I doubt it.
Right?
That's very kind of you.
But you're still doing work. This video will be in existence 30, 40 years from
That's
today.
true.
Why is that important for you? I mean, other guys your age are probably thinking, Stan, I'm going to Barbados to enjoy my money. I don't want to do any of this. But you're saying, no, I want to take some time and impart.
Yes. And I am impressed with young people in this country.
South Africa particularly.
I'm talking about South Africa.
Yeah.
Young people are enthusiastic, they're ambitious, they want to learn. When I looked at the remarks, the comments from part one of this interview, I was blown away. That I thought, here I am, an old white guy, who's going to want to learn anything from me? And I was amazed. People actually want to learn. And as long as people want to learn, I'm going to teach.
I love that. As long as people want to learn, I'm going to teach. It sounds like if the students are ready, the teacher will always appear.
Yes.
Right? So someone with your global influence, right? And as someone who's worked across Africa and beyond, how do you then envision that teaching and impartation and impact locally then transforming the communities? What do you see? I mean, when you look at it and think about it, I'm on a mentor. What do you see? What would make your heart happy once, maybe 3 years from now, 5 years from today?
Is that people I am mentoring become mentors themselves.
If the people you are mentoring become mentors themselves.
That's right. That it grows, that you plant the seed grows, becomes another seed. And as I said, when I was starting out, I had mentors and I learned from them. There's a saying in business, in show business, in media, you have to pay your dues. Paying your dues means recognizing the people who went before you and what you learned from them and why you need to respect them. I'm not looking for respect. I'm looking for people to take the ball and run with it. As I say, I've got young Mbali who wants to do things, wants to get into commercial radio. And she is so ambitious and so keen. It makes it a pleasure for me to help her.
So if you but before I ask this, you once told me a story of working with Saul Kesner.
Yes.
What did you learn? I mean, he said it wasn't particularly an easy task.
It was a
There
terrible
were high
task.
expectations.
He was...
So Nico, if you don't know who Saul Kesner is,
I couldn't...
the founder of Sun City. Yeah.
He treated people like dirt. I can't even use the language he used. Now, I found that interesting. I found it amusing. He would turn people into jelly. Grown men.
Well, you turned into jelly yourself.
No. I found it funny. I found it, he would look at a piece of work that you'd presented him and say, that's not worth crap, except he'd use stronger language than that. And then I would argue. I would say, I'll tell you why we're doing it like this. And I would often convince him, whereas others would just accept that it wasn't good because Saul said it wasn't good. He treated people like dirt. If you had a meeting at his office, he'd keep you waiting for 2-3 hours. That's not respect. That's not respectful. Respect is important.
But what do you learn from that?
From him?
Yes.
Not to be like that. But I must tell you, I found myself copying some of his behavior. In my own organization, I would be shouting and yelling and screaming. This was before I became a decent human being.
Before Stan 2.0.
Before Stan 2.0. I would be like him because I'd learned from him. So, but luckily I learned better.
So it's possible to have a mentor and learn what not to take from them.
Yes. But that's not what you learn from a mentor. That's what you would learn from someone whom you do not have respect for.
So for young leaders watching this, what is the one piece of advice that you would give to those that are looking to create success in their lives and businesses?
Know what you don't know, because the most dangerous course of action is when you don't know what you don't know. If you know what you don't know, you can find a mentor. You can find out about it. If you don't know what you don't know.
So
No, if you know what you don't know, that's important. If you know what you don't know, you can find people who can teach you.
So I want you to speak through that camera to someone maybe that could be battling issues of self-esteem. They might feel like they're unworthy. They might feel like the work that they're doing is not good enough, even if it is. They might have achieved certain things, but they still feel like they don't amount to much.
You're touching on what could be substance abuse, people who are drinking or drugging and don't know why. It's usually an underlying issue, the feeling of wanting to feel a part of, but feeling apart from, not comfortable in your own skin, using substances to numb the feeling that you have. If that is the issue, I'm a great believer in finding a mentor. This is where another place where a mentor can fit in and make you understand that what you're doing is good, that you're a worthwhile individual, and that you can make a difference in this world. A mentor can help you find self-respect, compassion, including self-compassion. A mentor can do that.
So what would you say to someone considering joining us on Next Gen Mentorship, watching what we would be doing?
Know what you want to find out. Come with questions.
Know what you want to know and find out and come with questions.
Yeah, find out what it is you need to know and come with a question.
Yeah. So one last question. Do you have a question for our next guest?
Oh, we don't know who the next guest is.
We don't know who the next guest is.
My question for the next guest is, can I have more than one question?
You can have more than one question.
Know what your philosophy is. Know what your purpose is. And know what causes you pain. If you can answer those, what causes you pain? What's your philosophy? What's your purpose? You're on your way to achieving greatness.
So the next question to the next guest is, what's your philosophy and what causes you pain?
What causes you pain and what is your purpose?
And what is your purpose?
Yes.
What is your purpose?
My purpose is to help corporates and individuals to thrive, to survive and thrive in a world gone mad.
To help corporates and individuals to
Thrive.
thrive and survive in a world gone mad.
Yeah. That is my single-minded purpose.
Yes.
to help individuals and corporates survive and thrive in a world gone mad. And this is part of the keynote speech that I give,
Yeah.
which I'm currently working on.
Awesome. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching and you are either in corporate or in a position where you are looking for a keynote speaker, Stan Katz does provide his professional speaking services. You can reach out to him. We'll put the link in the description box, or the information on how you can find him on the description box. And of course, if you are watching and you haven't read this book, It's More Than Just Money, please head out to itsmorethanjustmoney.com and grab a copy of this book that is literally transforming and changing thousands of lives, young people getting into business.
Can I come in here?
Yes.
I read the book after our last interview. You gave me a copy of the book.
Yes.
I actually read it. Everybody who is listening or watching this should get a copy of that book and read it. It's gold. It's gold. Don't even think twice. Get the book. Don't think twice. Get the book. It's more than just money.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, Stan. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
And thank you for the mentorship, for the teachings, for the stories that you share with me, and I'm drawing knowledge and inspiration from. So I really appreciate you, and I'm sure all our viewers also appreciate you and what you give to us.
Thank you. I'm humbled.
Thank you so much. And if you haven't subscribed, please remember to click on that subscribe button. Subscribing is free, so don't think that subscribing is going to cost you any money. You just have to click on that red button written subscribe and click on the notifications bell so that you don't miss any of our upcoming interviews and conversation. And remember, on the 1st of March, we have the It's More Than Just Money Business and Property Seminar. We're back in full motion with the seminars that we are doing across the country. We're starting in Gauteng at the Southern Sun Hotel in Rosebank. If you haven't gotten your tickets, please head out to Web Tickets and also check the link in the description box so that you can purchase your ticket. See you in the next episode, or you see me. Bye.